Alright guys, I'm running so far behind because I did have to go into work today, unfortunately. But I wanted to get this like briefing out on the Scourge for you guys. I think it's going to help you guys kind of set the groundwork. And then I'm going to have detailed guides per section coming out probably every 3 hours, maybe every 5 hours for the next 48 hours until it's done, which that doesn't add up. But you know what I'm trying to say. So in this video, we're going to talk about difficulty, what the clear winner on difficulty is here. We're going to rank the Scourges, and then I'm going to briefly walk you through what my 3.4 run was, the teams I used, and then you'll see all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to have a more detailed guide where I will not have this pretty mug. We're going to have kill order. We're going to talk about some tips and tricks, and we're going to do that in a big way, just like we did for the other Scourges. But stay tuned for that, and hopefully this will tide you over. So before we start breaking down Scourges and ranking them as far as, easiest, most difficult, I want to talk to you guys about difficulty. I have a huge account. I've done this Scourge more times than I care to admit already within the first 12, let alone 24 hours. Difficulty 8 seems to be the plateau, though I'm not ready to hard commit to that. But I've tried it like crazy. I know a lot of my other huge account friends have tried it like crazy. And we're finding that the payoff just isn't there. So if you look at my expected run score, this is only with 300 Scourges. This is, by the way, is going to be the Scourges I'm going to run on the guided video. Not the one you're about to see, but the one that's going to be detailed. We're getting about 3 million points here. If I up it to 9, we're only getting 3.4. But I promise you, I cannot run difficulty 9 with this many Scourges on. I will get destroyed. So I was able to get up to 3.4 just by adding more Scourges. I think I ended up having 370. My next time I'm going to have about 400 or so Scourges on, and I'll get around 3.7. To get something similar on difficulty 9, I'm going to have to start attaching some crazy things. I might have to attach the anti-healing stuff on. If I have to attach the anti-healing stuff on, I don't know. Yeah, see right there. Difficulty 9 hits so hard. There's very little leeway. I don't see that being possible. But if we go down from 8 to 7, it's a huge drastic drop. So it's not do a bunch of Scourges on difficulty 7 and you can compete with difficulty 8. If you're trying to get a really high level Red Hulk, I think you want to do difficulty 8, get as much in as possible. And if you do have to settle for 9 out of the 10 nodes on difficulty 8, I think that'll still outscore difficulty 7. I haven't checked that, but just looking at it numerically, it must. If we deselect everything, 850 there, 860 here, and then the Scourges just absolutely amplify it, whereas they don't really affect it so much on the other end. Let's throw some of the 30s on to illustrate that. So now we're at 2 million, and this one's 1 million behind. So even just doing 159 Scourges, I would clearly get more points doing 9 nodes on difficulty 8 than I will doing 10 nodes in difficulty 7. So, food for thought. And now let's do a couple of shirt changes because I fell asleep while trying to record this last night. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and rank the Scourges, and as far as difficulty goes, I'll give a brief explanation of what I kind of felt during my big run on these Scourges, and we'll try and do this pretty quickly. So, for Experimental Serum and Experimental Serum 3, they're not great, right? The point value is not there. For giving that extra health, 1 point and 5 points, just not great. Dark Resolved is just not working. So that's a good one to go ahead and put on. Definitely throw that one on. Apparently it's not working. I didn't feel it working either. Alright, then we have Gloating. Gloating is another one that I don't think is worth it at all. It's only worth 5 points, and it stops you from being able to double tap nodes to pull cooldowns. Specifically, if you only have Hero Asgardians, you don't have both teams. I think that you're definitely going to want to pull those Omega Red abilities, and you're not going to be able to do that if he's getting energy after he kills somebody. So definitely don't use Gloating if you only have one team. And even if you do, the nodes, Avengers node and the skill nodes are super tough. Power Siphon, that one's basically free. 5% drain is not a lot, and not so fast. I really like that one too. Not a lot of characters we're going to use besides Captain Sam. And our Bionic Avengers are giving speed, and Bionic Avengers are kind of they bust open, and then Viv Vision is going to cleanse you, and then from there you're just kind of using basics and stuff, and he seems to get through it okay enough. And for the next 3, we got Overcharge, Power Fatigue, and Stage Fight. So these ones are pretty easily enough. Overcharge coming in like the mid tier. Power Fatigue is a more difficult one. So when your abilities start costing 1 turn more, that's hard, but it's not as bad as when it gives you an ability block or a blind. And Stage Fight, I was surprised at this one. This one I didn't feel the effects of a lot, and I did use Sif, and I did use Hulk, and I did use those characters. So you get the defense down. Because we're kind of stuck on difficulty 8, just the way the scoring goes, it didn't feel that bad. And for the next 3, we got Too Clever, Pyrrhic Victory, and Unkillable. So Too Clever, pretty difficult. That's one of the ones you're going to throw in later. Like I was talking about, using special because ability block, that one's tough. When a player character blocks, apply heal block. So when we're starting to put the Pyrrhic Victory on, that's when we're starting to say we don't need to heal. We don't need to heal if we have both Ravagers and Hero Asgardians built. So that's kind of where I would suggest you stop if you only have one team. And I know that's really limiting. So maybe you skip all the healing stuff and you jump to like the Power Fatigues, the Too Clever, and stuff like that. But yeah, the second we start putting heal block and healing on ourselves, we're really hurting our Hero Asgardian team. And Unkillable, when enemy drops below 50% health, they gain Death Proof. This one I've never found very bad in any of the Scourges we've had, so I rank that one pretty basic. Blinded by Power. This one's a little bit easier than the ability block on special, just because you're using your ultimate a little bit less than you're using your special. Strong Opener, I think you just don't do. I don't know. Maybe if you're only using Hero Asgardians, since they're going late anyway, they're going to have that immunity dropped off by then. But that's really tough, and I would prefer to use other ones instead of that, because that's also going to affect your teams in your skill section, in your bio section where you're trying to use your web warriors. Yeah, so Strong Opener, very, very tough. That's probably one of the last ones I'm going to try and put on. And then Unstoppable Force. This one's pretty tough too, but more in the mid tier. Enemy strikers, they gain 5% barrier and flip offense down. Again, because we're stuck on difficulty 8, if you have your characters leveled up to like level 90, I think you're just going to be blasting these characters off when you're focus firing. So not so bad on the Unstoppable Force. Weakened, again, this is one you're only going to put on if you don't need the healing, if you have like multiple teams for each section ready to go. Dark Rally, when a player character uses their ultimate ability, all enemies gain an ability energy. I don't find this one very bad. If you're finding that you have to do multiple burner attacks to try and get cooldowns off, just make sure you're not using that ultimate on the burner team, feeding the energy. That's the only thing I would be worried about. Power Fatigue 2. Specials cost one more ability energy. I find this one more difficult than the ultimate one again, just because you tend to use specials more often than you're using ultimates. But they're pretty equal. Bleeder 2. I was surprised Bleeder 2 is minor bleed now. I think it was just a regular bleed in the Morgan Le Fay one. It doesn't seem to do much damage at all. So that one's pretty easy to put on. Butterfly Effect. I think this is one of the free ones. There's not a lot of fortifiers. And when they are and they're using their ultimate ability, it's to adjacent allies only, so this can also work in your favor because if you have a fortifier doing this, so it is what it is. I didn't find it difficult whatsoever. And then Experimental Serum 4. So this one gives you 40% max health. I did use this one on difficulty 8. I felt a substantial difference. However, this one is worth, and I know you can't see it, I believe it's 20 or 25 points. So it's one of a big ticket item. So when you get to the point where you're running out of ones that you find are feasible, this should be the only health one you put on, unless you're like in the top 5 and a matter of 10,000 points will get you a different rank. And maybe that'll be the difference in top 50, being that we're pretty much hard locked in difficulty 8, it feels like. Could be wrong. Maybe we're going to find a way to do difficulty 9 with a bunch of Scourges. But in my preliminary testing, boy, was it tough. Yeah, so Experimental Serum 4, one of the last ones you'll put on, but it's doable, because I did do it. Then we have Fight or Flight. I did not use the Fight or Flight in the run that I did for the 3.4 million. It looks like it's going to jump me up to about 3.6 million. So I will be trying with Fight or Flight next. And that's basically when a health drops below 40% max health on the enemy, they gain speed up. Speed is king in this game. And they're going to have death proof from the other one, right? So I think you need to be able to kill people as soon as they get this through the death proof and everything. It's doable, but very, very difficult. So that makes it near the end of the list as well. Off balance, pretty tough. Again, it's one of those anti-healing ones. So if you're going to put one anti-healing thing on, you might as well throw them all on. But if you need healing, again, if you only have Hero Asgardians, I would not suggest putting off balance on. Especially because, you know, like if you need it for your young Avengers, you need them to do both nodes. They spawn with that stuff. So they spawn with heal block and then you're screwed. Then we have Vile Resurgence 2. On enemy turn, they gain minor offense up. This is very painful, but on difficulty 8, not the end of the world again. So this kind of makes it to the middle of the tier. And then we have When It Rains. When It Rains, again, just one more difficult than Vile Resurgence, really. When a positive effect is applied to the enemy character, increases the duration of all their positive effects. You're either like one-shotting these characters, or you might be at a difficulty too high, is what I see. So again, difficulty 8, level 90 characters, you know, gear tier 15, I think you're going to be blowing them out of the water. Gear tier 14, it might be more of an even battle, and then maybe you don't want to consider using a Scourge like When It Rains. And then we have Energy Absorption. This one's really tough. It basically gives them like a Kestrel or Death Pool or Deadpool kind of mechanic. They'll remove all negative effects, and they heal per negative effect. This one was really, really big pain in the butt, especially in like the skill section, where they drop the defense downs. Oh no, this one was actually super bad because it also drops stuns. So this is kind of giving us a taste of the Cosmic Crucible Stage 6 that we're about to happen. No matter what debuffs you put on the enemy character, they cleanse it and then they take their turn anyway, unless you have trauma attached to those debuffs as well. So this is kind of like a good little feel for what we're going to go through, and I didn't like it. So that's going to apply to the legendary section in Cosmic Crucible. Very tough. And then Rope-a-Dope. Oh, I hated this one. So Rope-a-Dope, basically if the character ends their turn with a vulnerable, they gain defense up, deflect, deathproof, and safeguard. Basically they get like that Asgardian passive of Valkyrie. This sucked so bad on teams like Bionic Avengers and Web Warriors, where you tend to have a lot of raiders and you let the vulnerables sit there. This was very painful, and it made it so I had to use Captain Sam on that third node in the Avengers section, which we're going to see in a second. Very, very difficult one, but it's worth a lot of points. One of those 30-point ones. And then we have Stay Down. This one's basically just targeted at Dormammu, and it's free. This is the easiest one. It's worth 30 points. Put this on right away. But now let's go ahead and look at the sections one by one, and I'm going to show you, or rather talk about what teams I used, and then don't panic. I know it's kind of jumbled up. I will be doing a detailed section for every, a detailed video for every section. Sorry guys, 2 a.m. Let's go. Alright guys, so while I'm hard at work doing the detailed videos with the kill orders and a bunch of facts that'll help you get through it, I want to give a quick debriefing on the nodes and what I use so that you can get ahead of the curve. And then those videos should be out hopefully between today and tomorrow, although I am behind. So we're starting with the bio section, and what you want to do on this first node is send in a couple burner teams. Now I'm going to use A-Force, and using A-Force with Phyla-Vell, Green Goblin, or Symbiote Spider-Man, whoever you're going to use, we want to kill enough people to spawn in that second wave. So what I did also do that you're not going to see here, but you'll see in the other video, is I send in 3 level 1 characters on 2 separate fights. So in the first fight, I just sent in 1 character. The second fight, I sent in 2 characters spread out from each other, and that pulls the Spider-Woman special, which is very annoying with that offense down. And then I come in with A-Force and I start killing people. So that's what you're able to do. And then after that, we're not going to follow it with Symbiotes, we're actually going to follow it with Web Warriors. So the second wave spawns in, and you're just going to kind of get some momentum and beat it with your Web Warriors. But when using your Web Warriors, you don't want to use your ultimates. We're going to save that to start Node 2. And that'll lead us into Node 2. You'll notice there is a Phi Lavelle here. There she is. There's our Phi Lavelle. And what we want to do is, just like in the Morgan Le Fay event, reset until we get a favorable dodge, preferably from Spider-Man. Get defense down on everybody, fling your ult, kill everybody, and then you're probably going to die on the second wave if you're using a bunch of Scourges. If not, especially if you're not using the anti-healing Scourges, you're going to be able to one-shot this node. Otherwise, get it to the second wave, do a little bit of damage on that Kestrel, and then follow it up with your Gamma team. And I will also say, and we'll go over this more in the first video that's going to come out soon, full Gamma, level 90, gear tier 15, 16 Gamma people, even with a 3 yellow Hulk, Red Hulk, is walking through difficulty 8 at the highest Scourges right now. It's insane how big Red Hulk elevates that team. Kind of scary when you think about it. But that's going to be bio section number 1. Alright, now that's going to lead us into the Avengers section. This section is much more difficult when you're putting lots of extra Scourges on, when you're forcing your abilities to take longer to get off cooldown, when you're getting ability blocks, when using special, stuff like that. But if you're doing a more bare bones, you can just use one single team to beat both nodes. You can use either Bionic Avengers to beat both nodes, or you can use Young Avengers to beat both nodes. If you're doing a lot of Scourges, I do suggest you go with Bionic Avengers with Captain Sam. This sucks because the skill section is very hard and we need him later. So if you do use Captain Sam, try and get his cooldowns up as much as possible. At the very least, you want to at least have that special backup. If you can get the ultimate back up, then you're golden, and that's great. And obviously, we don't want to let him get too low, though in the skill section, Maria will heal him back up. So the Avengers section, it scales pretty bad. And then when I say pretty bad, I mean it scales a lot in difficulty. But the second node is, I just want to touch on this one a little bit. These Gamma people, you want to leave them for last. They're kind of baiting you. I found that out the hard way for a very long time. Take out the Johnny Storm, take out the Morbius, take out the Deathpool, take out the Scream, and take out the Electro if you're doing a high Scourge run with your Bionic Avengers. Then follow it up with your Young Avengers, and you can get it down that way. You'll also notice real quick, if I can find it, you see I was on this node for quite a while, I do clean it up with Young Avengers and Thor, trying to prep that Thor ult, though I found that's not super duper necessary. We'll talk about that. Next, we got nodes 5 to talk about. I know a lot of people were dreading this node because it's the hero Asgardians and the Ravager team that they haven't really put that much energy into. And we got some good news. You can get by on a full hero Asgardian team just fine at pretty high Scourges. When I do the guide, I'm only going to show hero Asgardian because that's who I was suggesting. And they can handle both nodes better than Ravagers can handle both nodes. However, Ravagers are an absolute cheat code. Ravagers can easily beat node 5, and they can set you up on node 6, so your hero Asgardians are doing very little lifting. But I did find Ravagers have a hard time doing both nodes, where hero Asgardians can RNG their way through it on Valkyrie's passive, and Thor just doing huge hits. You're getting a big Thor for that. So that's node 5. I don't think that's surprising anybody. Ravagers cheat code, full hero Asgardians, not Hulk. Full hero Asgardians can get you through it. Then we have the villain section. I almost don't even want to make a video on the villain sections because it's going to be a waste of time and not a lot of people are going to watch it. Because we have so many great options that we're not using anywhere else. The only thing I would suggest is not to use Zemo. He's like the best skill villain that we have to work with, and we can use him in that next section. But if you have Dormammu, you have Darkhold, you have Weapon X, you have Doom, you're going to absolutely blow through this section, even at high Scourges. I think in the recordings, all the videos are about 10 minutes long, and then nodes 6 and 7 for me are about 4 minutes total, which is kind of crazy. I don't think I needed a single reset. So, villain sections, at least that one's free. Now we have the skill section, which I think is, and Zubin agrees with me, the most difficult section in this event, especially if you had to use Captain Sam previously on that Avengers node. So, you're stuck behind pre-taunts on both nodes, and there's lots of dangerous characters as well. And you also see there's an Emma and a Cable, giving them a huge turn speed advantage on you. You could try Fury here. I didn't find much success with him because he doesn't bring anything besides that first turn, and it's a long node, right? It's a long fight, so Fury doesn't bring much. And then there's an X-23 who feeds off his summons if you have to use his summons, so not the best pick there. So I go in with my full raid team, that is Secret Avengers with Chi over Fury, and I get through that okay. I have heard people using Zemo here to get rid of the Drax taunt, and then they go to that left side right away, get an ability block on the Emma, and then they can kind of just kill really quickly with a Kestrel special followed by other attacks. I think if you go that route though, you need to have Captain Sam ultimate ready to go, which I did not here. So very, very difficult node, and it leads to problems because it's super hard to get through this one clean, and then node 9 is actually an even harder node. So what I ended up doing for node 9 is I used a lot of burner attacks the first time. I've got it down to just one burner attack now, where I use characters like Gamora, Moondragon, I use Zemo, Okoye, and Killmonger, as you see on the screen here. Now, what I do now that I didn't do here is I don't go for Bishop. I actually go for Colleen Wing, followed by Echo and Daredevil, I think it was. And then sometimes Dazzler just kind of dies, because she's squishy, though she does get lots of nasty buffs on you. The goal here is to kill a bunch of people, but most importantly Bishop, and spawn that second wave in. So why don't you go for Bishop right away? Well, because the other characters just kill you if you do that. So when I had Zemo ripping that taunt off Bishop and I can kill the other weaker people, then I was able to get the Bishop without my team dying. And I think my Gamora actually got to get empowered for the first time ever in this event, and she popped off in a big way. So that's kind of my workabout for the skill section. I think that's going to be the video that people are going to be most interested in seeing. So stay tuned for that one. And then we have node 10. So I already kind of touched on Ravagers being a little bit of a cheat code here. So you go Ravagers, but you take out Bruiser, you sub in Hawkeye, and then what we want to do is we want to strip as many defense up as possible and kill Ironheart. After we kill Ironheart, we're going to do even damage to the other hero Asgardians. Sorry, the other power armor bionic members. And then we're going to come in with our hero Asgardians and just wipe the floor with the cleanup. Because if you prepped Thor and you didn't use him on 5 and you didn't have to take a butt whooping to get to the second wave of node 10, then he comes in with a bunch of passives in his ultimate and it's just free. So again, Ravagers, kind of a cheat code in this event for nodes 5 and node 10. But in the guide, I'll briefly touch on the Ravagers, but I'm going to focus on just having hero Asgardians, because I know having a full Ravager team built up to 900k is a very, very small portion of the community. But if you fit in that mold, this is what I was doing to make it very easy on my. Alright guys, I hope this tides you over for a few hours. I'm going to get working right now on the bio section, the Avengers section. Hopefully by the end of the day, I can also get the node 5 section out for you guys. And then tomorrow, the other 3. Takes a lot of work, but I hope you enjoy it. I hope it helps you guys. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Stay happy, healthy, have fun, and I'll see you guys very, very soon.